Once, hi everybody. We're happy to be here with Michelle Cox and the Local Authors Book Club. Although Michelle is about as far away. Well, I don't know. We have somebody from the Northeast, but she's from Chicago. So, just pretend that wasn't what we call her.
Close enough.
Yeah. Anyway, we're so happy to be here. This book that she had put out, her one standalone amongst the two series that she did, um, is I really love it. I love it. So, but let
Thank you.
me first tell you about this fine young woman and who she is, why I wanted her to be here. Michelle Cox. I'm reading this now, so if it's
Okay.
Michelle Cox is always with stories of the past, has spent a lifetime collecting them. She is the award-winning author of historical fiction, including the Henrietta and Inspector Howard series, The Fallen Woman's Daughter, which is the standalone, and the Merriweather novels. And I
Mhm.
which one, the Henrietta or Mary, which one is the long ones, Michelle?
Henrietta.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not imagining my memory here then. Cox also pens Cox, good Lord. Michelle also pens the wildly popular Novel Notes of Local Lore, a weekly blog chronicling the lives of Chicago's forgotten residents. She lives in the northern suburbs of Chicago with her husband, an assortment of children who continually leave and then come back, and unbeknownst to most, she hoards board games. She doesn't have time to play and is, not surprisingly, in love with both Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart. Yay. Likewise, she is happily addicted to period dramas and big band music. Also, Marmalade. Yeah, love that description. You agree with that?
Thank you. Me? Yes.
Marmalade, huh?
Yes, yes, my favorite.
Yeah,
Mm.
good stuff. Breakfast. Well, this book, the standalone is called The Fallen Woman's Daughter. And thank you. And it is very moving in many,
Thank
many,
you.
many, many parts, at least, if not the whole book. Um, One of the things that, because I was an independent little girl that loved to run away, this kind of struck me, the mother, Gertie, and the fact that she just up at 17 and wanted to run away with a guy. And I thought, how cool, this is great. But I didn't find out about that until later in the book because it starts off with her daughter, Nora. Why don't you tell us why Nora starts the book? Did you do that? You did that intentionally?
Well, that's actually a great question because the way that I originally wrote it's the story originally started with Gertie, and I had a couple of her chapters, and then I jumped to the Nora and Patsy storyline. And when I had my developmental editor look at it, she wanted me to change it. She wanted the Nora part to be first
Hmm.
because she said, for one thing, readers like going back in time. They like making a jump back. They don't like making a jump forward and then back. So and she said, and it's kind of in a way, I mean, it's all three of their stories, but it's kind of Nora's story. It's her sort of redemption arc. So, that's why we decided to put that first.
Excellent decision, I think.
Yeah.
Folks that have read the book will know what we're getting at, and if you have not, then be aware that she's 8 years old, I think, when this originally starts. And
Right.
why don't you then tell us why she's not on her own, but she and her sister Patsy have been taken by the state away from their mother and their father and put into a home, a big home, probably one of those people that the homes where they get paid to take care of the kids. So sure, we'll take another one and stuff them in the closet or something. But
Exactly.
um, this traumatic experience for this girl is just an amazing way to start the book. Um, Tell us how that came about. Why was she going through this?
Well, I mean, maybe this is a good um point to just talk about the evolution of the story. And I don't know if I recognize Daniel, I think, from the last Zoom. Yeah. But I did talk a little bit about this, I think. So I when I start a book, I really love to have a little nugget of truth. And so I use that in the Henrietta Inspector Howard series. I use a person that I met when I worked in a nursing home in the early 90s in Chicago. So I have all of these stories, and most of them I put them into my weekly blog. But some of them I save for novel ideas because they're just so big and so deep and rich that they deserve a novel instead of a blog entry. So, um, unlike Henrietta, whose character is based on a real person, and then the rest of it is all sort of made up. This story, most of it, a big chunk of it really did happen. So I was able to interview this woman. She told me her life story. So the woman that I interview is obviously Gertie. That's not her real name, of course, but she really did run away with a carnival barker and in southern Iowa, and had all kinds of things happened to her as a result of that. And what was great about this, it was that I was also able to interview her daughter, which is the Nora character. So no, I was able to get a lot of information from Nora's point of view. So it made it such a unique situation. And Gertie ends up, or the girls end up getting taken away. I mean, I don't want to spoil I don't want to spoil the book for everybody, but Gertie just makes a series of bad choices, and because of one of these choices, the girls get taken away. Um, and when they get to this Park Ridge School for Girls, eh, Nora doesn't know why they're there. She can't figure it out. She keeps waiting for the mom to come back and get them. She never does. And finally, the matron of the house kind of hints that she's a fallen woman, and Nora doesn't even know what that means. So, the story progresses from there. But just an interesting, just quick side note is that one of the things that the woman who, Nora is based on, and this kind of comes out in the book too, is that she spent her life trying to convince her mother that it wasn't such a bad place. I mean, there were bad aspects to it, but Nora grew to love it there, and that was her home, and that was her family. And she kept trying to tell her mother that not to feel guilty about it anymore, but she felt like her mother spent her entire life feeling guilty that her girls ended up there, and that she would try to overcompensate for it. So anybody that they would meet on the street, she would say, "Oh, my girls go to this exclusive school and they have ballet and art and all of this," to try to, I guess, make herself feel better about it. And no matter what Nora tried to tell her, it just didn't sink in. The guilt was too strong.
Do you
So
feel like sharing that first chapter with us? We were talking about maybe you're reading that, or did you?
sure, is that what would everybody like me to do that? I don't want to like impose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Favorite things as readers is to hear the writer read their work.
Okay. Okay. Chapter 1, April 1932. Nora. This was all Olson's fault, Nora thought bitterly, trying to fight back her tears. They had been happy enough with Ma in the shelter and then the little apartment. But then he had come along and ruined it all. It was Olson's fault and no one else's. His fault that they had been taken away by these terrible people. Nora peered out the rain-splattered window at the landscape rolling by. Not even the fact that this was her first time in an automobile could abate her rising panic. Though she was all of 8 years old, she had never been outside Chicago, and she began to feel more and more afraid as the horizon opened up, the motor car chugging along. So much open space. It was frightening. Where are we going? Nora finally managed to ask. The man driving said nothing, but the lady next to him barked, "The Park Ridge School for Girls," without even bothering to turn around. Nora could only guess what that meant, and clutched Patsy's hand, though she knew her little sister wouldn't be any real help. Patsy had somehow fallen asleep, her head nestled in Nora's lap. She was 6 years old, but still acted like a baby, still even sucked her thumb. Nora wiped the tears that would not stop rolling down her cheeks. Ma had tried to hide them in an armoire, but the woman had found them anyway. Patsy had managed to escape the woman's clutches and had run to Ma, but the woman had simply pried her off, despite Patsy screaming and Ma crying and begging. In the end, the woman had had to employ the silent man she'd left leaning in the hallway to help her carry the kicking, wailing Patsy down the stairs. Nora, watching with horror, had decided she wouldn't struggle. Ma had grabbed Patsy's little cloth doll and stuffed it into Nora's pocket, fiercely instructing her to watch over Patsy until she could come get them. Nora couldn't get Ma's eyes out of her mind. She'd never seen them that frantic, that scared and trapped. It made Nora cry all the harder. The car stopped and Patsy stirred. Nora peered out at a cluster of stark brick buildings. Park Ridge School for Girls was chiseled above the front door of the main one. The tall, angular woman opened the back door. She stood there expectantly, but when the girls didn't move, she snipped at them. "Come on, out you go. It's not so bad here. Plenty of fresh air, good food. Better than that rat-infested hovel you were in. Should be grateful, I'm thinking. Not all girls get to come here, you know. Most have to go to Dixon, which is a lot worse. You got lucky, so come on." She crossed her arms and tapped her foot. "Come on, get out, or Larry'll drag you out." "We're here, Patsy, wake up." Nora gave her sister a nudge. Patsy whimpered and sat up, clutching the ragged doll Nora had given her. Nora scooted out and pulled at both Patsy and the little carpet bag they had been allowed to bring. Ma had blindly shoved some things in it, but Nora had no idea what. Shivering, she looked around at the dreary grounds. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still dull, everything soggy and ugly. "Come on," the woman repeated brusquely and marched up the wet concrete steps. Nora's throat ached as she took Patsy's hand. For a moment, she considered running, but where would she go? "Come on, let's get this over with," the woman said, pulling open the thick wooden door. Nora climbed the steps, Patsy in tow, but hesitated before stepping into the yawning black interior, the result of which was a swift push. Nora and Patsy stumbled inside, Nora righting them before they fell. They were in a type of common room with thick old wood everywhere and a winding staircase at the back, under which a set of pocket doors had been partially left open. In the room's corner, under a low, slanted ceiling, sat a massive desk guarding two more closed doors. On the walls were long rectangular photographs of groups of girls, all dressed in what looked like sailor dresses and black boots. None were smiling. Patsy clutched at Nora's dress as she hid her face and simultaneously inserted her thumb in her mouth. Nora's right leg was trembling the way it had while they hid in the armoire, the way it did sometimes when Mr. Rickard, their neighbor, was around. Brushing past them, the woman stiffly pointed to a wooden bench set along one wall. Nora obediently sat, pulling Patsy down next to her, while the woman began to pace around the room, drawing out a little watch on a chain from her pocket every so often and looking at it impatiently. "I don't like it here," Patsy whined. "I want to go home." "Shh," Nora said sharply, shrinking back from the woman's icy stare. "Mr. Ackerman," the woman called out loudly. Mr. Ackerman? Nothing stirred. After a few moments, however, an oldish-looking man slipped through the pocket doors under the staircase. He had snow-white hair and a large, flowing white mustache, and wore an old-fashioned white shirt with puffy sleeves. A black vest precariously hung on his rounded shoulders. He seemed startled to see them, and for a fleeting second Nora thought he might retreat. There you are, the woman said, stopping any further potential thoughts the woman might have had on that subject. Oh, Mrs. Whitlow, not today, the man groaned. Today's not a good day, and Mrs. Harvey won't like it. Can't you come back a different day? He implored, scooting behind the desk as if wanting to maintain a safe distance between himself and Miss Whitlow. Certainly not. Don't be ridiculous. Where is Mrs. Harvey? I've got two new ones. She gave Nora and Patsy a triumphant nod. Mr. Ackerman afforded himself a quick look. The corner of one of his eyes twitched relentlessly. Well, she's out back. He slowly scratched his head. Been a bit of a disturbance this afternoon, you see. A disturbance? What kind of disturbance? Mr. Ackerman glanced back at the girls. Well, I don't think I should say. In the present company, that is. Oh, for heaven's sake, where's Mrs. Duballa then? Well, she's most likely out back too. Who is it, Jacob? A loud voice boomed as the pocket doors banged open. A large bull of a woman stormed through. It's Miss Whitlow. Mr. Ackerman tried to shift out from behind the desk, but the bulk of the woman blocked him. She stared at Nora and Patsy, hands on her hips. What's this? You know very well, Mrs. Duballa, Miss Whitlow said evenly, not at all cowed by Mrs. Duballa's hostility. She fished in her handbag for an envelope, which she then thrust at Mrs. Duballa. Court order, just this morning. You should have already received a telephone call from the circuit court. Well, we didn't. Mr. Ackerman shuffled from side to side, still trapped behind the desk. I can't help that, Miss Whitlow went on crisply. It's my job to round them up, and that's what I do. And here they are. My part of it's done. We're full up. Not a single bed open, Mrs. Duballa said it coolly, as if the two were engaged in a card game and Mrs. Duballa had just put down an ace. Not my business, I'm afraid, Miss Whitlow responded, laying down a trump. Clearly, you have a problem in your communications. She waved a hand at the desk. If you have an issue with Judge Schaefer's ruling, I suggest you take it up with him. Good day. She turned on her heel and strode toward the front door. The permanent, Mrs. Duballa called out. Probably from the look of it, Miss Whitlow answered without looking back. Nora felt a strange panic at the disappearance of Miss Whitlow, even though the woman had not given them one drop of kindness. Mrs. Duballa seemed infinitely worse somehow as she stuffed her thick fingers into the envelope. Roughly, she pulled out the letter inside. Her tiny black eyes darted through it. Stand up, she barked as she read. Nora stood, pulling Patsy to her feet as well. Leonora and Patricia D. Lorenzo, Mrs. Duballa sounded out. She shot them a glance. That you two? Nora nodded. She considered telling them that they were never called those names, but she didn't dare. When it rains, it pours, eh, Jacob? Mrs. Duballa snapped irritably as she tossed the letter onto the desk. Mr. Ackerman made a move to pick it up and insert it neatly back into the envelope, which she had also tossed on the desk. Yes, ma'am, I reckon so, he answered meekly. With one deft movement, Mrs. Duballa grabbed a bit of Nora's hair, roughly pulling her head down. With the other hand, she did the same to Patsy, who let out a little yell. Just as I thought. Lice, she said with disgust, then wiped her hands on the apron that squeezed around her large stomach. I hate Italians. Take them to the bath chamber. Then what? Mr. Ackerman asked. Ain't no openings, just as you said. Mrs. Duballa sighed, thinking. Take them to Solomon, she said finally. They'll have to share a mattress on the floor. Mrs. Morris ain't gonna like that. Maybe you should ask Mrs. Harvey. You do as you're told, Jacob. I'll handle Mrs. Morris. With a heavy sigh, Mr. Ackerman finally managed to squeeze his way past Mrs. Duballa's large girth and led the girls out. There you go.
I love that.
Thank you.
You're a bit, I didn't know you were a bit of an actress too.
Yeah, read it very well.
Thanks. Thank you. It's from having three kids and reading about 1 billion storybooks before bed.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's great. Great.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that struck me, I'll let other people pounce in here too if they want, but something that struck me was Nora seems to have a real strong um, practical sense of how to take care of herself. Was did Nora come to you and tell you who she was, like some authors say, or did you have to totally figure her out? Of course, you'd like you said, you'd interviewed the person who.
Yeah. I think it's probably a little of both. I mean, I do think that Nora just kind of when I envisioned what kind of a little girl she would have been, she would have, I think back then, kids grew up faster than they do now, and she was left alone a lot to take care of Patsy when her mom was out trying to work. So she, from a very young age, had to be the responsible one. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Michelle in addition to me? I mean, I got lots, but
Don't be shy.
my,
I, I I was going to say, Michelle, um, Nora is a survivor, and she's been a survivor from probably day one in her life. And
Hmm.
this comes through your storytelling,
Oh,
as Patsy is trying so hard to make sure she does everything right for her big sister.
thank you. Yeah. Have you had a chance to read it, Margaret? The whole
Oh,
book?
I am going to do that.
Oh, I was just wondering because I didn't want to reveal too much, but yeah, exactly. And as you go through the story, Patsy is a bit of a free spirit, and Patsy was definitely a character that I had to invent. I mean, I do know some of the details of her real life. And so based on that, I kind of worked backwards and constructed what kind of a child she would have been. And she's kind of almost very ethereal, kind of dreamy, spacey, um, doesn't quite fit into the mold. Whereas Nora is that older sister, wants to be perfect, wants to follow all the rules. And as the story goes along, Nora ends up, taking a lot of Patsy's punishments because Patsy just can't seem to handle or can't even understand the rules. Well, she's only 6 when they get there. So, yeah, there's a lot with that dynamic.
So good.
Yeah.
Joanna, you were.
Yeah, I'm really curious because of the time period that you write in. And I'm curious about the kind of research that you needed to do because you've got a lot of very rich cultural things going on with this novel.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of it was, just firsthand interviews, but I write a lot. Almost everything I write is kind of set in this time period. So a lot of that research can sort of, carries over um, between project to project. So a lot of it is, I mean, my bio is kind of tongue in cheek, but I really have collected a lot of stories from the past. I seem to kind of have an affinity. So, like at family parties, when all the other kids were out playing hide and seek or whether I was the kid that was always sitting in the corner listening to the older people tell stories about, the past and who was related to who and all of that kind of thing, just even from a very young age fascinated me. So a lot of this, sticks. There was in particular, I'll just also just mention that there's a lot of online Chicago neighborhood historical societies. So, and of course, there's a Chicago one, but some of the neighborhoods have their own. So those have been a huge wealth um, for me, especially when I was writing my very first book, which did not get published. But I did a ton of research on Chicago's Northwest Side and what it was like, and before even some of those neighborhoods were annexed into the city. So that's just a little bit of the research.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hadn't thought
Anybody
about
else?
that you could carry over things, do the research once or twice, and then just carry it over and stuff. I know
Yeah.
Steve's writing goes way back to the wee days of Greece and
Oh, wow.
yeah, and trying to think. Janet, you're what? Are you in the 1800s?
Mine actually are contemporary, um,
Oh,
but I deal with a lot of traditional culture in them that dates back, 1,000 years more.
oh,
But
wow. Okay.
but my books are contemporary. They're set now.
Now?
So, yep.
Okay.
Wow.
Fantastic.
When I read that one, I must not have caught it. That's weird. Maybe I was,
You you must have honed in on the cultural
yeah,
traditions that she's talking
Yeah,
about.
yep,
boy,
yep. I'd say.
you suckered me.
Well, that's okay. It's just a little bonus, right?
Oh, that was kind of cool.
I was just thinking that, especially I lived in the Chicago area for 10 years.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and so I mean it's different from the West Coast in that you've got this history and this community that's been going on for a long time.
Mm,
And it's there. And it's almost like you're living historically, if that makes any sense to you, just
yeah.
because it's there.
Mhm.
Um, and it kind of just infuses everything. But it's so yeah, I could really visually picture uh, as you were reading all of that. It was
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there is a lot of history, obviously. There's a lot of history that I don't even know. I mean, just a quick and history where you wouldn't necessarily even expect it. Like the nursing home where I used to work was on the Northwest Side, Foster and Pulaski. And of course, as all neighborhoods in all cities, change from one demographic to another constantly. But there was this little sort of patch of neighborhood, this little houses and lots of trees and stuff. And I used to walk there during my lunch hours. And I happened upon, this is in the middle of a neighborhood. There's a tree with a plaque on it. And the tree has a branch that goes straight across and then up. And it said that this is the original trail that the Indians who lived in that area would take. It was a signpost that they would bend the trees and point in the direction of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And that path that they were following was actually a bison trail once upon a time. And I'm like, this is incredible. Is anybody else paying attention to this? Yeah, so definitely a lot of history. What area did you live, Joanna?
I lived in LaGrange.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, I mean, it was rife with beautiful old Victorians and
I
great big
know.
shouldered mansions. And there was also Catholic charities. Um, I don't know if you call it an orphanage, but I just remember that, my kids were in grade school then, and that there were kids that were living there and they were going to the local elementary school. So again, I could really picture what you were talking about, and it's still there.
Wow.
I mean, now, of course, now this is 20 years ago, but I was just thinking, though, putting myself back 20 years, um, in the context of what you're talking about, it's still there. I
That's
mean,
amazing.
yeah, the idea of how communities form and go forward and evolve and do it. I mean, you've got it.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of readers who, because the Park Ridge School for Girls is in Ridge, and it wasn't called that. It was called like the Illinois Institute or something, and I thought that was too boring of a title, so I created the Park Ridge School for Girls. And I've had several people who are from Park Ridge contact me and say that you know, they remember this place. It's part of the park district now. A lot of the cottages have been torn down. I think it became like a youth center, and then it's either torn down or it's used for something else now. But um it's kind of always fun when readers know about a place that you're writing. And just another quick little research side note. So when Gertie and Nora were telling me their story and telling me about this place, I did do some research on that, and I did find an article from the Chicago Trib from the 50s where they did this expose on the place, and they found they were calling it a dungeon underneath one of the cottages. So I put that into the book, even though Gertie and Nora did not tell me that.
Mhm.
I just thought it was too delicious of a fact. Had to work it into the novel some way. And it's a place where naughty girls were put. So it was named, the girls nicknamed it after one of the girls who, you know, lived there. So I didn't want to use her name, but so I just made up a name, the Carrie Court. And that's what they call this place. And of course, Patsy gets put in there very frequently because she's never following the rules. So yeah, that was a real actual thing, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve.
Well, just a personal question, I guess, here, but are you anywhere close to Arlington Heights?
Arlington Heights is about a 35 minutes like southwest of me. Are
Okay.
you're familiar?
No, we have a very close friend
Oh,
lives in Arlington Heights, and I just wondered how close you were to that.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm in Grace Lake. So Grace Lake is about 20 minutes from the Wisconsin border.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I actually can get to Milwaukee faster than I can get downtown, but I still go down a lot. Yeah. Cool. Anybody else? So is this a book club that meets, so you meet once a month? Yeah, you do, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And how do you choose your books?
Well, we don't usually choose a book, we choose an author. And
Oh,
most of
that's
the time,
cool.
it's a local author, like Janet has done it. And then they talk about their books and um, explain to us why uh, they're have been invited because they have this wonderful writing to share. And even though the person leading this group is confused as to the details, I got to go back and reread that book now because that just flabbergasted. I can believe it's like I overlaid that all of that cultural stuff in my mind, and I put your characters back in time, Janet.
That's
On
okay. I
the
plan to bring you another book to Coffee with Linda if I make it. So I already set it aside. I've got it for you. So
Oh, bless your
so
heart. Well,
you don't have to reread the other one. You can have a fresh one. How about
I'm
that?
like, what? How did I do that? I have a very vivid imagination. And
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm reading certain details in that, my mind goes off and follows it. And so, yeah, you probably took me in like I was in a time machine there. That's pretty cool, especially for a country I've never been to. So,
Well,
but then of course I had you on your vacation. I saw your pictures on Facebook, and I tried to insist you were in Wales. But hey,
no,
what
there's
was it all?
no lions in Wales.
Oh dear, dearie me.
That's okay. I'm home now. I'm back to normal.
Yes, Janet, when as soon as she got back, she says, I'm there. I can be to the group. I'll be there.
Yay.
Yeah,
Well,
I like being a part of this group. And this this meeting, the local authors group, to me, introduces me to other authors that I maybe wouldn't discover if I
Yeah.
hadn't been a part of this group. And I like
Mhm.
that. I like to learn about the books. And it's fun to put a face to the person that created those books. So for me, that's what I love. So I recommend people
Yeah.
attend, even if
Yeah,
you're
that's
not
such
the
a
presenter.
yeah, that's a really cool that's a unique spin. I don't usually find that. It's usually about the book, not necessarily about the author. So that's kind of neat. I like that.
Yeah.
And for a while, I was in a book club, and because I wasn't in a book club before I started writing. And then once I started writing, I'm like, I should be in a book club. So I tried it for a couple of years and then I just got too crazy busy. But, everybody kind of says the same thing. It's just such a great way to be exposed to books or authors that you would
Yeah.
never choose on your own. And some of them, are really, really good. So
Yeah.
I've enjoyed them.
I lead a number of groups. Um, this one, and then actually next week there's one. It's not even about authors and books. It's a salon, and I think we're talking about April Fool's Day. This month we try to pick a theme and we just chat. But we go all over the place and we talk about and share what we're reading with each other, and recommendations. And then there's one that meets in person, a large one at the store, and then two others online. And in each of those three, the books are chosen for a year, and it's a whole different experience. It's more like what you would expect in a regular
Mhm.
book club.
Right.
And they're interesting and I enjoy them, but this is the one I have the most fun with.
Yeah.
I just love hearing from the authors and their perspective. And
Yeah. It's fun
very
to know
Wonderful.
what inspires people to write what they write.
different.
And, I'm just kind of interested here to know why that time period and how the culture of Chicago affects what happens in the novel. And I think, you've explained that pretty well. Those were my questions. So I didn't get to ask them.
Well, I will just say that, I mean, the first book that I wrote that didn't get published was set in the 40s, and that's truly where my heart is I love the 40s. But when I was writing my first book in the Henrietta and Inspector Howard series, I didn't know at the time that it was going to be a series. I just thought it was going to be a one-off book. And I based it on this woman that I had met. And so I used a lot of her details. So she was this very beautiful, vivacious woman in Chicago, and I just thought she would make a perfect heroine in a mystery book. And she had all of these bizarre jobs in Chicago, and so I decided to put all of those into the book. So she had a problem. She was working in Chicago during the Great Depression. She did not have a problem getting a job. This is in real life. Because she was so beautiful and vivacious, she was always being hired for various things like a 26 girl, a taxi dancer, a waitress, blah, blah, blah. But she was she was always getting fired because she was always being felt up or, trapped in the back room by the manager, and she would slap them and she would be instantly fired. And I thought that took a lot of courage to do during the Depression when there was lines of people out of work. So one of the jobs that she had was working at the Chicago World's Fair in 1933. And that was her favorite job because she had to dress up every day like a Dutch girl and pass out flyers for a Dutch rubber company. And she said it was her favorite job because when her lunch hours, she got to walk around and look at the fair. And so I just thought that that was such a cool detail. So it's like, "Oh, I really want to put that into the book, but then I would have to set it in the 30s." And I thought, well, I can do that for one book. And then, of course, it turns into a whole series. But now I'm glad that that happened because there's just such a glut of World War II books
There
and
are, yeah, there
World
are.
War One books. So I kind of feel like this is kind of a forgotten generation.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying, writing in that era.
So, are all your characters, your main characters, based on real people? And do those people know that you're basing your characters on them?
Sadly, no, they do not. Because when I met them, they were, you know, probably in their 80s, most of them. And that was back in early 90s. So I'm sure they are no longer with us. And sometimes I get asked if I've contacted their family. And no, I haven't done that either. Yeah. But the so there are really Henrietta is the only one that's a real person, and also this story, The Fallen Woman's Daughter. Everybody else is not a real person, but they might be based on somebody. Like, I can say this now because my mom's passed away. But Henrietta's mother is a very, very difficult person, and she is based on my mom. And lots of other people could recognize it, but I was always so nervous for my mom to read those books. And she never recognized herself, which is amazing. So, yeah,
That's funny.
I know. Yeah. So I'm sure, as writers, everybody kind of uses people that they know a little bit to sort of, shape some of their characters. So that's definitely has happened to me.
You do it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was interested in your comment about the book, the first book being intended as a one-off, and then it evolved into a series. I experienced the same thing with my historical series in ancient Greece. And I started with one book, and it was the characters that drove me into the other books. I just wondered if you found that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because when I started writing the first book, which is called A Girl Like You, I really I was really still invested in that unpublished book. I was still trying to find an agent for it. So I was still really pushing that. And I was just sort of working on this because I thought, well, maybe if I wrote a short mystery, that would be more appealing to an agent. So I started writing this mystery, A Girl Like You, and about halfway through, I real my loyalties finally shifted from these original characters to these new characters, and I really fell in love with them. And I got to the end of the book, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to leave them behind. I've created this whole world, and so decided to make it into a series. So if I had, because that's back in my early part of my career, and if I had known that I was writing a series, I would have set it up differently. And so that's why the Merriweather series, which is a spin-off of the original, so I took a minor character and she gets her own series. Um, it's just set up so much better because I know what I'm doing now. But yeah, I couldn't help it. I had to keep going. How many books do you have in your series, Stephen?
Well, in that particular series, there's four books.
Okay.
And the way I explain it to people is that I started with Sinan of Kira, and he's on an adventure. He takes his servant with him, who is basically a brother, a Nubian servant. And what I tell people is about halfway through writing Sinan, Mentu stood up and said, I need my own book.
Yes, for sure. I know the feeling. Yeah. That happened with Henrietta's younger sister in the original series, Elsie, and she was only ever supposed to just sort of be a bit character, but every book, that came along, she had a bigger and bigger role until like by book 4 or 5, half of the book is Elsie's story and half of the book is the Clive and Henrietta, and it's kind of it intertwines. So when I announced that I was doing a spin-off series, everybody assumed that it would be an Elsie spinoff. And by the time I got around to writing it, I just felt like Elsie's story was finished. Because the other book, this other series is a 7-book series, and I felt like I wrapped her story up very neatly, and I purposely left this other character's story a little bit open-ended so that it would be a natural transition to her own. But yeah, I can totally relate.
Can I at the end of this meeting, could I speak with you for a couple minutes? Because I'm writing a book now that you might be able to help me with, just a brief thing.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
There's one thing that came to me, the theme, one of the themes of this book leans heavily, and it's of course related to the period of time, whether it was in the 30s or the 40s or even beyond that. But the title of this book, The Fallen Woman's Daughter, and the idea of women who were, shall we say, made their own decisions about what they wanted to do all the time, and didn't follow the norms of family life, or, you know, with, when I say that, you know, marrying somebody that daddy approved of and all that kind of stuff. Um, that idea of the fallen woman, because we don't really say that about women so much now, but was that something you intentionally wanted to focus on, or did it just happen because it was real and it fit?
Um, it partially just happened, but the one part of the story that Gertie was not the woman who plays Gertie, let's just say it that way. The one part that she wasn't very talkative about was why exactly the girls were taken. And she does. So in chapter 1, Nora is blaming this in her mind on this man named Olson. So in real life, there was an Olson character, and he really did end up. So Olson and Gertie end up getting together. Gertie is fooled by him. She thinks that he's finally a decent guy, and it turns out that he's married, and that really did happen. So something happened there because in that caused the girls to be taken away. So in the book, I suggest that it's the wife of this Olsen character that sort of rats out Gertie and accuses her of prostitution and sleeping with married men and whatever as a way. So once I had that established, I decided to play on that and kind of make that one of the themes, is that, you know, Nora grows up thinking that her mother is this horrible person but as readers, you're reading her story along with Nora's, and you're seeing, you know, kind of what Gertie really had to go through. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts or comments or what have you? Oh no, not what have you. But that's way too open, isn't it? Oh, are you working on something now that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I I have too many projects going at once is usually my downfall. So I have the edits back from my editor for book 2 of the Merryweather series. So that will be coming out, I'm hoping, still this spring. It might not be until the end of May. But that's coming out, and that's, coming along nicely. And then in the meantime, I'm taking the Henrietta and Inspector Howard series out of the hybrid press that it's in and republishing it on my own. So that is proving to be a very giganotron task. And I thought that it would be easy, that I would just put a new cover on them and fix the typos and then That's it. But I'm going back through and I'm just finding so many clunky writing mistakes that I'm trying to, micro fix it um while I'm going along because I just don't think I can put it out there the way it is. So I'm fixing that and relaunching that whole series, hopefully still this year. But I would love to put out a Christmas novella. I put one out last year, and that was a lot of fun, based on the series. I would love to do a Henrietta and Inspector Howard cookbook because I do a weekly recipe every week, and I just think that would be kind of a fun book to put together. And what else am I working on? Oh, I do have another standalone that's written. It's been written for a while that needs editing, but I like that one almost more than I like the Fallen Woman Starter. I think it has a lot of potential. It just needs me to just have some brain space to sit down and work with it. So hopefully that will come out one of these days. So yeah, I have a full slate.
How's your novella coming along? How do you get your novellas out? Do you rely on having other books to get a novella out? Because they're kind of an in between. They don't put them in with magazines, but you do books or short stories, and novellas kind of in that weird empty in between place in there. How do you really get novellas started and out to the public? Do you have to? I'm just curious if you have to have a following already or what.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I do think it definitely helps to have a following out there. And I based it on the 7 book series and I announced that that's the end of the series because it really is. But people really, really wanted more. And so it was a natural sort of evolution for me to say, okay, I'll write a novella, like a Christmas novella, because that, I mean, that's just another product for me to be able to sell. I mean, being honest, but also it fulfills what my readers were wanting at the same time. I did meet though a writer at a conference, and she has a very interesting technique. So she writes um I didn't know this was a genre, but she writes mail order bride. So I'm like, well, how many ways can you tell that story? But apparently there's a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
what she does is she writes these long short stories. So not quite a novella, but short stories. She puts them up on Amazon as short stories. I don't know how you can do that. And then once she sort of sells those for like $1 or $2 or whatever, she'll put them together in a book and then sell the book. So she said it's very successful. Um, I would never have thought of doing it that way, but I guess you can make it work.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, I do think it would be hard because, well, I don't know. People say that people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, so maybe novellas are the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Michelle, do you have a routine that you follow as far as your writing day?
I do. So I write in the first thing in the morning because that's when my brain is the most crisp. So whatever manuscript I'm on gets that part of my brain. So then I usually work an hour to 2 hours on writing or editing, depending on what stage the book's at. And then after that, I turn my attention to it's like a big umbrella of what's called marketing.
Hmm.
So social media marketing, all of that kind of stuff. Ads take up a big time because you have to, create a graphic and text and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I end up spending about maybe 5 hours on that a day. sounds crazy when I'm saying it out loud, but somehow I ended up spending that much time. Yeah. Yeah. So anybody else? Any questions? I should mention that the new series, if anybody's a Jane Austen fan, the new series is also are also Jane Austen retellings. So Matched in Merriweather is book 1, and that is, of course, Emma. Book 2 is Uncovered in Merriweather, and that is Mansfield Park. So it's kind of fun because they're all set in the 30s in Wisconsin, and they're all a different Jane Austen retelling, but they're all same world and same characters.
Cool.
So that has been really, really fun to do. It's kind of a challenge, I guess, as a writer too, because I'm not coming up with the original plot. I'm trying to follow these other books, but I have to fit the characters in that. So that's been a challenge, but a fun one for sure. So definitely check those out.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate your time and everything, and
You're welcome.
I think you have some folks who are interested in your work, maybe as much as
Great.
so. I'm looking
Yeah. If you
reading.
think, if anybody thinks of anything, any questions or whatever, or once you read the book, if you want to contact me through my website, I'd be happy to answer anything.
I'll be sharing that information in our bulletins and newsletter, so we'll be able to
Okay.
get that information. I know Steve wants to talk with you after everybody else is skedaddled, so
Okay.
Steve won't mind if I hang out. I know what he's going to ask anyway, so. But it was
Well, thanks everybody for showing up. This was great. Thanks for listening to me.
very
Yeah.
wonderful. You'll have
Thank
to
you.
come.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Michelle.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a
Very
good day.
interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So Michelle, I am writing a book right now. Actually, I have 3 projects going. I'm dealing with a new series in ancient Egypt, and I go back quite a bit farther than because my Greek time period is around 600 BC. I'm stepping back to around 1300 BC for the Egyptian, and
Wow.
I'm comfortable in the Greek because I taught classical mythology over 4 decades and focused on the society of the ancient Greeks. I'm having to do a lot of research with the Egyptian, but it's turning into be quite interesting. One of the 3 things I'm working on right now is a book that came about as I reread one of the books that I had written a couple of years ago, and the emotional impact that I felt from that. And so the book is called Ecstasy Through Agony, The Writer's Odyssey. And it is an exploration of the emotional impact of writing, of being the writer. And so I have managed to get on, Linda, I hadn't had a chance to tell you this, but Writer's Digest has secured permission for me for several quotes from articles in the magazine that address issues within this. So at
Oh,
this point, I have probably 6 or 7 quotes from Writer's Digest articles that the permission has been given by the authors involved. And the reason I wanted to speak to you is that be- because you're traditionally published, and it sounds like you're maybe getting into self-published as well. Um, I would like to send you an email that lists the chapters within my book just by the topics and see if there's anything there that you could uh, give me a sentence or two kind of quote to address any of those. And I'd welcome, as many
oh.
statements as you might have. And also I would want to know what you want in the way of an attribution within the book for
Oh,
that.
okay.
So if you are interested in that at all, if you could give me your email address, I'll send you an email that lists the chapters.
Okay, great. Yeah. No, I'd be happy to do that. I just so you know, the She Writes Press is a hybrid, so I'm not, unfortunately, not traditionally published, but yes, I have moved into the self-publishing space. So The Fallen Woman's Daughter was my debut self-published book. The novella and all the Merriweather novels are self-published too. So yeah, I would be happy to see if I could come up with at least one quote for you. That'd be great. So
Okay.
my email is new Cox chapter. So NEW
Hmm.
COX chapter, like in a book, at Gmail.
Okay,
Perfect.
so excuse me, I'm just getting over bronchitis.
Oh no.
Newcox chapter at gmail.com, right?
Right, right, correct. And
Okay.
then just how quickly do you need it back?
Oh, this is not right away.
Okay, that helps.
I'm in a critique group with
Uh-huh.
3 of my past students,
Oh,
and they're all published along with me. And one of them has basically a bestseller. It's a nonfiction book, um,
Very.
but etc. What's that?
I'm still recording.
Oh,
oops.
oops.